Who would you consider to be the top 5 greatest old school RuneScape PvMers of all time? What even qualifies a player to be considered for such a prestigious position? Thanks to the help of the community on Twitter and further discussion with the PvM clan Oblivion, I've come up with a list of my choice for the top 5 greatest PvMers of all time and the reasons why they trump the rest. Now, before I reveal my first pick, I'm going to briefly break down what metrics I look for when deciding if a player meets the qualifications. This list is not meant as the current best active PvMers, but a list of those players who, when seeing the OSRS timeline as a whole, prove time and time again that they are something special. I look for mechanical ability for their time period, meta discovery in old and new pieces of content, notable achievements, and the inspiration they generated inside the community. Although speedrunning and mechanical precision and mastery play important roles in PvM ability, I had to go with a more well-rounded selection. I've decided to save certain players that clearly show more talent in specific areas for future top 5 videos, including greatest speedrunners, greatest mechanical players, and greatest meta creators. This was a tough choice, but in the end, I'm satisfied with my picks. Drop a like if you enjoy the video. Now let's get into it. Number 5, Calvino. Calvino has been inactive in the OSRS scene for over 4 years, but was an absolute wizard of PvM in his prime. He was arguably the inspiration behind Inferno speedrunning taking off, and showed the community that with enough practice, anything can be made easy. Calvino held the world record for fastest Inferno time for years. When players eventually beat his records, he'd come back and quickly send them back to second place. Exactly 5 years ago, he set the world record at 53 minutes and 53 seconds. That is an admirable time for 2023 standards, but back then it was insanity. He was untouchable. Calvino flicking became a coined term after his upload to YouTube showing off his prowess at 6 Jads. Although unsuccessful in completing the entire challenge in the particular video, he managed to defeat multiple Jads without losing a prayer point and whilst simultaneously activating his defensive and offensive prayers the entire time. This feat was mind-boggling to the community and is still seen as a very difficult mechanic to pull off, especially at a piece of content this intense. Calvino had a deep understanding of the tick system in RuneScape and continually found interesting metas in both PvM and skilling. He remained pretty quiet during his peak years of gaming, but his accomplishments spoke for themselves, and he's still seen as one of the all-time greats because of what he could do back then. Number 4, Unpredictable. Unpredictable is one of the most mechanically gifted players in the history of the game. His brain computes ticks and intense PvM scenarios with ease. He has completed some of the most absurd challenges the community has ever seen, and all because of his passion to push his ability and what's seen as possible to new heights. To list just several of his most insane achievements, Unpredictable has completed a melee-only Inferno on a 1 defense pure without pillars. This alone is such an astonishing feat when you think about the sheer pressure every wave entails. He also defeated the Triple Jad challenge without ever turning on a prayer. He completed the 6 Jad challenge with only 1 HP, 1 prayer, and 1 defense, as well as almost entirely finishing a 1 item, no supplies Inferno run. Unpredictable is seen as a mechanical genius in every sense of the term by high-level PvMers around the game. He's inspired so many of those players to push their own abilities further than they thought possible. Although most of his notable achievements revolve around the Inferno, his mastery of the place shows what he'd be capable of if he spent a fraction of the time at other, easier pieces of content. Number 3, Exact. Exact is one of the most inspirational players of our generation. Along with being one of the kindest people in the community, he also defied the impossible on more than one occasion. Exact mysteriously began competing with Rendy to achieve the world's lowest combat fire cape back in late 2019. Their passion and hours of researching and tick eating had them both eventually defeating Jad at level 3 combat. Exact's greatest achievement was obtaining an Infernal Cape on a level 40 combat account after Bodhi's challenge to the entire game to see anyone go for a 45 combat cape or lower. Bodhi paid the man $10,000 as per the rules in the challenge, but Exact, instead of pocketing the well-deserved cash prize, decided to instead team up with Bodhi in giving away the money to up-and-coming OSRS content creators. Alongside those two undeniable feats, Exact also was a demon at solo Tob, and would even do it on a 1 defense pure. He even almost accomplished it on his unforgettable pure hardcore Ironman Tree Climbed. Argued by some to be the greatest ever hardcore Ironman account that ever lived. Due to numerous circumstances, he fell in the end, but all those who showed up for the stream knew it was ultimately a sacrifice and not a mistake. Within such a small window of time, Exact's popularity spread across the community, and although he isn't actively playing currently, he still achieved some of the most insane feats of all time, and is widely respected. Number 2, Port Khazard. Port Khazard has one of the largest brains in all of RuneScape history. The man endlessly solves some of the most difficult obstacles in endgame PvM encounters. He is the definition of a beast gamer. Some notable achievements of his are completing the first and only level 3 combat fight caves, post-nerf, deemed impossible to ever be completed again by the community at large. He also found a strategy to defeat Zuck without ever actually attacking him and executed it flawlessly. Before many TOA changes were made in the early days of its release, and before the Fang kit was even announced, Port Khazard was the first player to complete a level 500 TOA. With the release of Desert Treasure 2, he became the first and only player currently to have defeated all 4 Awakened bosses in a row without dying and in just 1 inventory of supplies. If those accomplishments weren't enough to blow your mind, Port Khazard also defeated Nex in a solo before certain updates were implemented, and he also completed a fight cave in under Grandmaster time without losing a single prayer point off task. Port Khazard has proven time and time again why he is one of the all-time greats, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of his impossible feats in the years to come. Number 1, Woops. You probably guessed it before the video even began, but it's so hard to find enough arguments to not have Woops as my number 1 pick for greatest old school PvMer of all time. Although in recent years he's not been as active or dedicated to the game, he was still untouchable over the many years of his prime. Woops was the first player to obtain an Infernal Cape and first player to solo the Theater of Blood, having pioneered the strategies behind each room. Alongside a plethora of crazy feats in pre-EOC, Woops also defeated 6 Jads without prayers, and another time while black screened, making him have to rely on sounds only. Woops also discovered metas years ago, like Corpse Solo with only potatoes and the 1-item Bando Solo. He's been instrumental in the evolution of solo raids and has always been insanely quick with figuring out metas for new releases of high-level content. Ultimately, Woops is no longer seen as one of the current best, but his unforgettable achievements throughout Old School's history remain a pinnacle part of why he's seen by many as the GOAT. He's inspired an entire generation of PvMers, and his legacy will live on until the end of RuneScape. A few honorable mentions before the video ends. Adicon, Afzal, Lake, Noob Type, and Scotty. Let me know down in the comments who you would have selected in your top 5, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more top 5 videos in the future.